Yeah, so what's up, guys? My name is Jared Whittakin. I am the director at Building Bridges to Careers Makerspace. I'm here with Malcolm McGregor.
I'm Malcolm McGregor, the assistant coordinator, helping Jared do whatever we need to get done around here.
So we thought it would be a cool idea to make some recurring content and just sort of sit and talk about things that are maker related. Sorry. First of all, if you guys don't know what BB2C Makerspace is, it is a community workshop with several different content areas. We won't get into too much of that because you can just check it out on our website, which we'll link to in the description of the video. But yeah, we just wanted to talk about really a different maker-related topic kind of each week, and also use that as an opportunity to update you guys on what we're doing and kind of just tie things in, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'm going to be super awkward for a second, because it feels super awkward for a second. But yeah, so as Jared's already mentioned, going to try and topically keep it maker related each week, but wow, I'm just
It's all
I
right.
can't. I'm just
When we were brainstorming this,
words.
we really just sat and kind of had a conversation about like what's going through our minds right now and how does that tie into what we're doing. So it's kind of a conversation we've already had before, and it's really kind of weird and unnatural to recreate a conversation like this in front of camera, but that's kind of what we're doing today. So we're approaching the darkest season of the year, loss of daylight. With that comes a lot of seasonal depression, comes a lot of just issues with mental health. You pair that with the fact that we had kind of a stressful election for a lot of people out there, and we've got COVID going on that's forcing people indoors, and they don't really have a lot to do. And that's just putting a lot of strain on people's mental health right now.
And so that segues into what we kind of wanted to tie this episode together with. We wanted to kind of brush on how making, crafting, hobbies, working with your hands, creating things for yourself, how these are all really good avenues to help redirect energies in times when our mental health may be struggling. I know me personally, making has always been something, artistic endeavors have always been something I've leaned towards in times when I am sort of struggling with my own mental health. Just coming around here, I've been here about a year now, and stained glass area was something, stained glass in general was something I'd never really had much experience with, never really worked around until I started here. And I know just in the last year since I've been here, there have been numerous days where I've sort of just got lost in bringing an idea to reality, and it definitely kind of helps me redirect some of those energies and feel a little better in an overall sort of way.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with building bridges since around late March, but before that, I had gotten into making for the sheer fact that one, woodworking in particular had interested me, but I was working at a very high stress job before that wasn't any fault of the employer that I had at the time, but it was just an inherently stressful job working with juvenile delinquents. And I found that the only times that I was really just tuning out and kind of turning my my stressed brain off is when I
slowing the internal monologue, sort of.
Yeah, focusing on a very on a problem that was unrelated. It was shaping a board, let's say, and if it didn't turn out the way that it was supposed to, that was okay because it wouldn't be the end of the world. There was nothing to lose, I guess, by this venture. And likewise, at the end of the project, if things turned out well, I had this thing that started as this raw piece of material, and it got to be shaped into something useful. Be that a cutting board or a knife handle, depending on what I was making at the time.
Right. That reminds me of a friend that a guy I served with. A few months ago, I was actually in a pretty bad spot myself, and somehow, Facebook, I don't know how things connect sometimes, but like he just had reached out and we chatted a little bit, and like the takeaway from our interaction was just set a goal, get a win. Like sometimes we just need to set a goal and get a win. And like in making, for me, watching something go from an idea in my head to calculations and figures and materials lists on paper, and then eventually like come into creation, become a real thing in the world. Like that's a great little just run through of setting a goal and getting a win. And I think sometimes like the biggest thing we need is just a win. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And like I feel like making is creating something like that's a very concrete way to kind of set a goal for yourself and to get a win, and then ride that momentum. Hopefully that helps. As the days go on, like you can remember that little win you got and remind yourself to set a new goal and get a new win. And I don't know, just winter feels like the time to be making, like to be in a dingy wood shop somewhere, or in a nice, clean, spacious wood shop like we have downstairs. But,
it absolutely is. Yeah, it's absolutely the time to make stuff. And like you talked about, these like little victories and these setting small goals. For me, one of my experiences as a woodworker was I started out with a project that was a little too ambitious for me.
Right.
And I'm really glad that I didn't let that deter me. In retrospect, like if I had people I knew were starting out, like I would start on these smaller projects that what I would call confidence.
What was the first thing you built?
When
you first really started, like
when I first started woodworking, I wanted it was really out of necessity. Like Christmas was coming up, and we didn't have a lot of money this year. My wife was between jobs, or that year, sorry, not this year. And I wanted to make this like giant wooden structure that had little Lego build surfaces built into it. I didn't understand like the difficulty of with minimal tooling, like routing out a section.
Like so, you'd have that lip, that edge that
these could sit down into. Yeah, so I made some expensive paperweights starting out.
Right.
If that makes any like everything that I screwed up, I feel like that that project started out as a bust, and I wound up just like gluing them to a board. But like the even the process of sanding just a simple board and starting there, I recommend people start with cutting boards and things like that, because just shaping wood and starting with this rough cut and it becoming this smooth, usable surface, that was my first, I think, win.
Right.
And that came after the failure. Of course, like failures are part of the whole process.
Yeah, that's what I'm sitting over here thinking is, like sometimes, I've learned a lot more from messing things up or from doing things the wrong way, for sure, than when things come together smoothly. It's funny that your first project was, like just super ambitious. I think that makes a lot of sense, like having worked with you the last few months. And you definitely like to overcommit and and then deliver, but like you're
but fly before I walk.
Right, exactly. Go straight to fifth gear, out of park for sure. I dig it. Like I similarly, like I mean, my first project was a pretty simple Craig jig together. I made like a 3 uprights, like a bookshelf with some compartments underneath for like toys and stuff. But it was just all out of a single sheet of 4x8 plywood. Just following like just jig cuts, and then I moved on to just trying some weird joinery, and like built some coffee tables, and those projects were a little more abstract, a little more ambitious, trying to do things like not on right angles, like unnecessarily, just because I thought it would aesthetically look a little cooler. And like the first big piece of furniture I built was a record stand, a stand for my record player, and most people, like if they look at it, they'd never notice, but I totally screwed that up. Like I had drilled one set of holes for my dowels on the wrong side of a line, and didn't notice until I had already ran the glue up. And so it was like in this moment I was faced with, do I spend the next 14 hours in the shop like refinishing and re-preparing all of these boards to be joined together, like cleaning up all the glue and just that mess, and or do I just in this moment, roll with it and make a decision. And I, went with one side or the other. And so the original structure, like, essentially shifted a whole inch to the left. But like I said, it's one of those things, like, I know, like, I learned from
Right.
it. But it was, trying this ambitious glue up where I had, like, I don't know, probably 20 different dowels that all needed to go at one time. And anyway, yeah, that's the fun of making, I think, and that's, like, kind of the fun of life is a lot of times, like, we're afraid that we're gonna fail at it, and we probably will, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
but it's when that hesitation and that fear kind of prevents us from even trying that's the real problem. And so I think, like the first step is just deciding, what, like, I would like to try and make something. I would like to try and learn something new, and, like, just kind of facing that fear and coming in and failing, like coming in and, like,
Yeah.
learning, and, like, who knows, you might not fail, like, but you've always got to be prepared for that, and, like, I think grateful for the lessons you learn when you do kind of mess stuff up.
Well, and like kind of you mentioned, it turned out differently than your expectations. Like how good that process is for mental health, because like we go into a lot of situations in our life, with these set expectations of how we want things to turn out. And like when we're faced with the practicality of those things in real life, it's like, wow, it's not quite turning out that way. But sometimes the end result is just as
Right,
good. Like
right.
that, I've made beautiful pieces that I thought were going to turn out one way, and like hit a wall in the middle of it. And then on the other side of it, I was like, oh, this is awesome. This was like a happy accident.
Right.
And I don't know. I think it's a real humbling experience, and it correlates real well with like how things tend to go in the real world.
For sure.
It's really easy to get bogged down on when things don't go right or when things aren't going well. It's easy to lose sight of how things might end up good for you in the end.
Right. Definitely. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I ended up with a functional, record stand, like that, like everyone, who sees it, like, appreciates the beauty of it or whatever. Not knowing, like, just how much it changed from what I expected or whatever, just how much I had to kind of curb my expectations, and how the end result wasn't necessarily what I envisioned, but still a great result. It got me, kind of passionate about woodworking and making more of that side of things. Like, photography's always been something I've dabbled in, but that's just a whole nother monster of finding good outlets for that.
Right.
But,
I mean, I feel like once you dive into craftiness and making things that, like, at least most of us don't stick within one medium. Like
Right,
like makers
right.
don't just hang out in their lane. Like everybody has their forte. Mine's kind of woodworking. I like doing that. But it's hard to stay in that lane, especially when people come and they request things like, "Hey, what if you painted a bird on it?" Like,
right. Yeah.
I wish that starting out that I had access to a place like Makerspace, because like it provides the opportunity to like dabble in different mediums.
For sure, and there's
like,
there's a ton of
try,
overlap.
fail.
Yeah, there's a ton of overlap between, like, one project, but you can utilize like a dozen different spaces if you wanted it to, a dozen different mediums, and yeah, no, it would have been really great to have something like this, because like I was in my garage with some hand tools and a scroll saw, like in a
Right.
like or not a scroll saw, like a crosscut saw, an old Craftsman radial arm, but I don't know, you learn to kind of work with the tools you have, but it would have been a lot nicer, I think, yeah, to have all the tools I need, instead of trying to, like, using this saw to, like, try and rip a flush edge so that I could join two boards together, when a couple passes through a joiner would have been so simple. And
Right. And there's like workarounds, like people make jigs and things
Right,
like that.
right.
But like it gets to a point sometimes where like the jigs that you build for particular projects, they take up as much space as like the actual tool themselves. So it's just, yeah, it would have been nice for me at the time to have a place that already had the tool collection.
Right.
And not just like the tool collection, but like a place where I could like laser engrave stuff on it, or sew something to upholster, like to put on it, or to paint, or even even 3D printing, like, and integrating parts that way.
Right.
That would have been a cool thing.
And it's like even now, like I mean, we say like we wish those things might have been around. When we were just first starting out, like dabbling. But it's like I don't know. I'm really grateful that I get to come to work and like this is what I do is like try and help other people get access to this and like try and just spread word in the community that we exist, that like we are a conduit for for government funding to find its way back to communities that actually need it and to try and like make an impactful difference. Like, but it's like you said, it's like now like you have access to all this where you can take things to the next level. Like you can customize by 3D printing a component or by laser engraving something on a traditional woodworking project and like kind of take it to the next level and like make it more your own, more uniquely you. Like I don't know, it's just like we do have access to it now, and so it's like I don't know, I just even if you're like not just even if people aren't like just starting out, like I mean maybe have existing projects they're working on and there's like components that like I picture somebody sitting at home like just very focused with a pair of scissors cutting out vinyl for like these sticker embellishments on something they're working on. When we've got these really great machines that you can just run it off like a printer and and save time and effort and energy. Like I know we aren't gonna like planning on talking too much about like all of the things that we do, but I think like it's important to mention that like Building Bridges to Careers, our parent organization, and the type of work that they do with like small business incubation, it's like if I had an existing business, like I would love to have had access to a place like this, like a crafting business, especially like if you got like an Etsy shop or that sort of thing, like a place where you can actually start to make it profitable by finding time-saving approaches and I feel like that's something you're really good at helping people with. When people come in with a really abstract idea, like about figuring out, okay, well, what do I have at my disposal to bring whatever idea somebody just laid at your feet to life, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think it's just like, I don't know, candid moment, like the struggle's real, like, you know what I mean? For us, like trying to get word out, and I mean, I know like the world's sort of on fire right now. There's a lot of good reasons why it's a struggle, but I feel like this, like, it's segue back to it's November. We're entering the coldest months of the year. Like, I know my mental health is usually the biggest struggle during this time of year. Like, I just feel like we're needed more than ever. Like, this space is needed more than ever.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, and it's frustrating. Like, I know you feel my frustration. Sure. It's frustrating trying to get people to see that and get people to just come walk through the space and let the gears turn. And like see some of the tools that they could be using, some of the equipment that's available, and more than anything, like trying to build a community of like-minded people, of people who want to kind of help propel each other forward.
Sure.
Like, I mean, I know just random input from people, like when I've been working on things, has probably saved me like hundreds of hours of unnecessary time. Sure. Because like I just had it in my head that this is project should come to life in a particular way, and then all it takes is another set of eyes to say, like, look, like here's this path that like cuts this whole corner. Right. Like, and there's no real loss in cutting that corner, like, and you're
Let's
like,
go from A to
C. Like, okay, yeah, like, I don't know, I just really, like, I feel like you and I both, I'm not speaking for you, but like are really passionate about the idea that making can have, like, in a general sense, like that sense of independence, like that sense of accomplishment. I know some of my favorite moments since I've been here have been when we've had like young folks in, or even older people taking, adults taking some of our evening classes, like seeing that moment where like you can tell someone is like really unsure about whatever it is we're about to dive into, but then by the time it's said and done, like just that sense of accomplishment you can feel from them, that pride, like of like, oh man, like this wasn't nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. I made this. Like, I don't know, it's just a really cool thing. And I wish we I wish we got to experience that part more. You
Yeah.
know, and I think that's part of what we're trying to do by getting more content out there. I think, like,
Sure.
um,
And even as an individual, of course, like for selfish reasons, I want other people to experience the things that I think you and I have talked about experiencing, which is when somebody presents you with a problem that to them seems just mind-blowingly complicated,
right,
and you're like, oh yeah, we can totally do that.
right.
To instill that confidence in people, let me just preface this, like, I am not a genius. I'm not like this master woodworker or anything like that. I've had a lot of practice, but when I started out, I can remember things feeling sort of overwhelming, and like to be where I'm at now, where like, yeah, just people hand you a problem, or they come in like kind of at a loss as to, what do we do?
Right.
I'm like, well, it's actually easy. And like seeing, like you said, seeing that realization in people is pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely the most rewarding part. I wish that starting out I had people to bounce ideas off, like you said, who kind of didn't have skin in the game,
Right,
so to speak.
right, for
like,
sure.
I
It's
need
a lot
this-
easier to see from the outside, like
Sure.
sometimes when you don't have any skin in the game, for sure.
So as kind of like a tie-in and wrap up, we want to instill that in people. Please come in and take a class, or even just a tour. You can register for our class.
It doesn't cost a thing to come check out the space. Like, and even our membership is very affordable if that's a route that someone would want to pursue. Plus, we have scholarship opportunities as well. And but yeah, it doesn't cost anything to just come in and like check out the space and like really see like what we have to offer, like what we could actually do for you.
And if there's something that, like, you go to our class list on the website, which we'll link and put in a link below right now. If you see something if you don't see something on there that you're interested in doing, or if you have like your own idea of what it is you'd want to learn to do here, let us know. Like, it's likely that we have the know-how or the equipment to make that class happen.
Or one of our many content experts. If we don't, they certainly might as well. Like have that know-how to like just. Yeah, it's not just the classes. It's not just specifically what we've got up there and what we're already offering, but really like anything that someone would like to make, like we could probably facilitate. At least get them pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, until then, stay sane in the world that we're dealing with right now. Get out, make something, build something. You'll be amazed at how it makes you feel. And we hope to see you soon. We'll have some new content posted next week. Thanks, guys.
Bye.